We now have video footage from the January 6th Trump riots in Washington, D.C., which confirm that a close ally of radical Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was not only there, but he was inside the Capitol building. You might remember that we previously discussed that a gentleman named Anthony Aguero was suspected of being inside the Capitol building. And Aguero is a known associate of Marjorie Taylor Greene's. He's a right wing, I guess we'd call him like a right wing live streamer and activist. And when back in February, CNN asked him, were you actually inside the Capitol building on January 6th? He didn't answer. And he said, you know, there have been videos posted, which I was supposedly filming from inside the building, but they were really filmed by someone else. He sort of played coy and didn't answer. We now have videos of the riot in which it is clear that Aguero was personally inside the Capitol building. In the screenshot that we're putting up on the screen from Freedom News TV, you see Aguero highlighted by a red circle on the left side of the screen, clearly inside the Capitol building. Now, Aguero has declined to comment on this. Marjorie Taylor Greene's office has not yet responded to requests for comment. But this is now, it's no longer hypothesis. It's no longer speculation. It's no longer theory. This is a confirmed Trump rioter who is also an associate of a current pro-Trump Republican Congresswoman who has been heavily defended and propped up by the former one-term president, Donald Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Aguero previously worked on anti-immigration issues. They've been to pro-Trump rallies together. And I previously told you about videos in which Marjorie Taylor Greene referred to Aguero as amazing and as a friend. And as CNN has reported, Aguero has called Marjorie Taylor Greene, quote, one of my closest friends. So now we know he was there. We know that a Marjorie Taylor Greene ally was in the riots. Now what? Well, the next question is actually one that goes back to a prior question that we still don't have an answer to. Were there current pro-Trump members of Congress who were involved in discussions about the plans for the Trump riot ahead of time? Were some of these pro-Trump Congress people not merely indifferent to the riots, not merely supportive of the riots after the fact, but were any of them actually proactive participants in the planning of the January 6th Trump riots? We don't know the answer yet. There are already investigations into certain tours of the Capitol that happened in the days leading up to the riots, and we're still trying to figure out why would there be any tours since the Capitol has been restricted because of the pandemic. That doesn't make any sense. So many more questions remain unanswered, I guess is the way I would put it. Now, the position of the right continues to be a sort of conflicting mix of talking points. These were fake Trumpists who rioted on January 6th. But at the same time, we heard from Ron Johnson that if they were real Trumpists, they weren't a threat to anybody like him, because they are patriots who wanted what's good for the country, which conflicts with they weren't actually Trumpists. And they also had no plans to do anything wrong, except they did because just being there was a crime. You know how the right loves to say all undocumented immigrants are criminal aliens because it's illegal to be here for them. Being here undocumented is a crime. Why does it matter what they were doing at the Capitol? Just forcing your way inside is destruction of property and trespassing. As they like to say about undocumented immigrants, it's a crime just to be there under those circumstances. But of course, very different rules apply to pro-Trump insurrectionists than to undocumented people coming over the U.S.-Mexico border. So the next question is, will we, I mean, it's a question for you, it's a question for us to think about. Will there be any definitive linking of these pro-Trump members of Congress to the planning and organization of the January 6th riots? And there's a lot of speculation on this. There are investigations going on. And then the sort of follow-up question is, if there are pro-Trump Congress people linked to the planning of the riots, will there be any consequences? Because if anything has become the sort of default norm in the United States political world, it's that for many elected officials, particularly Republicans, because their own party is unwilling to hold them accountable, there's just no consequences for things that in the past there would be significant consequences for. Let me know what you think. And of course, we'll continue following the investigations. Today's show is sponsored by an excellent audiobook called Takeover: How a Conservative Student Club Captured the Supreme Court. This is the latest audiobook from Noah Feldman. It just came out. And Feldman actually narrates the audiobook himself. Noah Feldman, of course, is a Harvard law professor and constitutional scholar. You may remember him from his prominent role in Trump's impeachment #1. And the book Takeover looks at how the Federalist Society became the most powerful legal organization in the country. 6 of the 9 current Supreme Court justices are current or former members of the Federalist Society. And Takeover dives into what the organization is, what it stands for, its relationship with American politics. The Federalist Society is an organization anyone in my audience should be aware of. And the audiobook has a ton of excellent insight into it and the role it plays. I really enjoyed listening to the audiobook. I think anybody in my audience would as well. So grab Takeover by Noah Feldman. The audiobook is just $4.99 and you can get it at davidpakman.com/takeover or wherever you buy audiobooks.